Um, Maybe not for the invitation because I invited myself, right? But but for accepting this proposal that is for sure a little bit maybe different for what you are used to see. But the idea is to discuss some interesting themes that it's also entertaining. So I put in this talk, I think the biggest pitfalls, the biggest mistakes that I ever see being done in Agile. And I use my favorite movies to talk about that. Before starting, I will talk a little bit about me. I work at Unibizeta. Um, I'm here in Italy for 2 years now. I came from Brazil. There, I work in the this ITA is a very famous engineering school in Brazil from the Brazilian Air Force. And then I work as a researcher in the National Institute of Space Research, which is responsible for example, handling satellite images and working with other space systems. I have some online courses in Coursera. I believe maybe my course was, if it's not the first, one of the first courses in Portuguese from the Coursera platform. These magazines you see there, I was for 7 years the editor of a programming magazine. Not a scientific publication, but focused on industry, about programming, design, and everything. I run this magazine for 7 years. I have 2 books published in Portuguese about software design. I also I also manage this open source project called Sphinge Framework, which is actually kind of an umbrella project for many kinds of framework which uses innovative mechanisms based on metadata. And just a final curious thing, I'm a board game designer and I also teach a course on board game design in Unibizeta. Right, so let's go. Before starting this talk, I have a very serious and important thing to say. Might have a few spoilers. The movies are not really new, but if you did not watch the movie, maybe you get some spoiler. But yeah, just a warning. Okay, so let's start. Well, with the first movie, which is Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Who saw? Every movie. Let's see who saw it.
Not very new, this one.
No. This is. Here we can see the age, right? Yeah, but I think the new generation should see that. And in this movie, there is this scene which became very famous, in which appears a guy with a sword, and then you think that, oh my God, how he's going to face this guy, and he just gets a gun and shoots and move on, right? And from these scenes, we take our first lesson, which is keep it simple, right? In software development, many times we like a lot to complicate, right? As a developer, I know that sometimes we try to do that solution and use the most sophisticated framework, do the most flexible thing, but sometimes doing the simplest thing is what works, right? And sometimes when you start with the simple, even if the solution needed is more complicated, it can be the best way to reach, let's say, in the level of complexity that you actually need for that. And this is not only for the code. for example, also for the business, sometimes try to think about the simplest functionality that can satisfy your client. Think about the simplest architecture that can fuel your requirements. So use this as a starting point. Don't start complicated, right? Always try as Indiana Jones with the simplest solution. And this is one of the key aspects of Agile. This works for tools, development environment, and how you handle your project, right? Okay, so let's move for the next movie, Matrix, which is not so old as Indiana Jones, even have a kind of a reboot. I did not watch yet, but let's talk about the first movie. And I will pick up a scene. This one will not have much spoil. So there is this scene where Morpheus, this guy here, is trying to teach Neo how to fight Kung Fu, right? They are kind of in a virtual world. And Morpheus believes that Neo is the one, right? Is destined to learn the things fast. So then Neo is trying to hit Morpheus several times and did not make it, right? And then Morpheus talked to Neo. Don't think you are, know you are, meaning the one, right? There is the difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Another sentence from Morpheus from this movie. And what is the lesson that we take from this scene? Don't think you are agile. Just know you are agile. Be agile, right? I see some people that try so hard to follow the agile process that they care so much about doing things that people that are agile do that they forget about actually being agile, right? It's like, okay, let's do the stand-up meeting. Get up, get up, get up. It's stand up. You need to stand up, right? Oh, it's 5 minutes. You don't, you need to talk fast, talk fast. So he worried more about the format and what needs to be done than he worries about the actual sense of this, which is communication, which is, in this case, to exchange information in the way that works for your team, right? So sometimes it's like, I don't know, let's put post-its on the wall because that's what agile people do. So he's so worried about having this that he forgets about what is the best way to do the things for his team, right? So I see people like picking up the Scrum book, and it's like written in the stone. Nothing can be different from that. And there is nothing less agile than thinking in this way, right? So having the agile mindset, understanding what is the agile values, is much more important than following the practice. Actually, I do believe that maybe in the first weeks or in the first iterations, you should try to follow the practices the way they are in the book, to understand them, and then to figure out what is the best way to do for your team. It's not like I use one day, then I change everything, right? I need to understand how it works, but then I need to do it. I have a friend that says, if you are doing Agile today, the same way you do Agile 1 year before, you are not Agile anymore because you stop learning, you stop evolving. And there is nothing less Agile that don't adapt, right? So don't think you are agile. Know you are agile in your heart. Star Wars. I know I did not pick the best Star Wars movie, right? Okay. Being that said, this one has a huge spoiler. Um, so, Luke Skywalker came back, right? I forgot the name of the new rebels, but the rebels are being attacked, and then Luke Skywalker appears in the middle of the first order army and the rebels being attacked like that. He alone against all of these machines. And then the bad guy, Kylo Ren, from the other side, say, he is dangerous. Shoot him with everything you got. And it was like that. They shoot. This place has kind of a red sand, so this sand kind of raised up and they couldn't see what was happening. And then they say, keep shooting, don't stop. And they keep shooting for a few minutes. Enough time for the rebels to escape. And when they stopped shooting, who was there without any scratch? Him, Luke Skywalker. So they insisted in something without knowing what was actually happening. What is the effect of that? And what is, I will not say why he did not, he was still there. I give a little bit of a spoiler, but I will not give more, right? But the fact is that they shoot for a long time and this is not working. Maybe if they give the first shot and look what happened, they will not insist on that. And from this we take that feedback is essential. And feedback is one of the most important things we have in Agile. We need feedback in every level at every time. When you are programming, you are doing test-driven development, you have immediate feedback from what you are doing. When you do small iterations, you are getting feedback from your clients. If you are defining a software architecture, right, you need to figure out a way to get feedback from the architectural decisions you are making. Every step you do, every decision you make that you don't have feedback, it's something wrong that you might be insisting, like the First Order did there in Star Wars. They insisted in something that was clearly not working, but since they don't get the feedback, they keep insisting on that. And how many software projects you already see this way? Like choosing an architecture in the beginning of the project, to not validate it, to not get feedback, then in the end figure out that it do not work. Right? How many, or making some assumption about the business, right? Maybe a startup makes some assumption, don't validate that assumption, so invest, no feedback, and then lose all this investment. So every step without feedback, you might be going to the wrong path. That's why everything, every decision that matters should have the feedback as fast as possible. Okay, this one is old, but now is back because of the Cobra Kai series. Right? Who watched Cobra Kai? Oh, yeah, nobody. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, let's go with the spoiler. Okay, So, uh, this I bet everyone knows, right? The ego blow, right? In the first movie, right? Danielson needed 1 point to win, and then he did the ego blow, right? Which gives him the and I remember I was a child and everyone at school did that. It was like really, really famous. But then came uh, uh, Karate Kid 2. And he was facing the bad guy. And then he makes the famous position of the, and now it's like this I used to watch this Japanese series that every time only finish with the same blow. I was like, oh, now it's the finish. He will finalize him with his like signature movie, right? So don't. The same blow do not work the second time. Worked the first time really well, but not on the second fight. And from this we can take no silver bullet. It's not because a solution worked once that it's going to work the second time. It's not because something worked for a company that will automatically work on another one. Every project is different, every team has a different context. Of course, we can take good ideas and we can experiment, but then again, we go back to the Star Wars, we need to get feedback, right? It's not because one architecture works that everybody's saying that microservices is the new silver bullet that that will work for your project, that will work for your architecture, right? So, and this is something that we really need to understand in the software development industry, because we find every time a new silver bullet that's going to solve all the problems, right? Like this commercial that we see, oh, all your problems are gone. This is the new thing that's going to solve all the problems you might have, maybe for your process, for your architecture, and so on. But we know there's no silver bullet. Maybe that will work for you, but you need to evaluate always the trade-offs, right? That's not all benefits. There is always a trade-off. There is always a cost. And you need to see for your specific context if that cost works, right? So even if the blow worked the first time, does not mean that for the second time it's going to work. Lord of the Rings, right? I will not pick the main character, but I will pick maybe the most famous one. Maybe you don't recognize him by this picture, but maybe what he has in his hands gives some clue. He used to look at this ring and say, my precious, right? So he kind of became that, right? So obsessed he gets for this ring. And without giving so much spoiler, that did not end well for him, right? This obsession for having the ring, having his precious, lead him to his ruin, right? But what we can get from the Gollum story for software development? How many people you know that has that tool, that framework, that look at it and say, my precious, like, this is my precious framework. Don't say anything bad about it. Oh, this tool will save our life. Don't say anything about this language, this tool, this process, this everything, right? And this happens very frequently, right? I already go to some companies that we find someone, there's always this guy, right, that is obsessed by something, right? Tomorrow, when this guy say about this tool in front of you, you're going to look at him and say, my precious, right? So I leave this challenge for you, and then you let me know, right? Uh, uh, and it's good. Tools are good, right? So in Agile, we say, oh, we should, let's say, the focus should not be the tools and the processes, but they can help, right? They can help a lot. But we should not get obsessed by them. It's not, let's say, it's a set of things, right? They should not be the focus, right? I remember in a project getting to a meeting, what you did this iteration. We were able to integrate these two tools. What about the software? Oh no, we just did this infrastructure configuration. But what about the software? They get so obsessed by integrating the tools and make it work and make it, oh, do you see how it generates? I remember these tools that use it to generate all the software documentation, like, oh, look how beautiful, and oh, see, 1,000 pages that you don't have to write about the software documentation. I say, okay, 1,000 pages, no one's going to read. That's fine, right? Okay, I don't know what it's for, but okay, you like it. Maybe it can be useful, but should not be your main focus. Your focus is the software, it's what you are doing, right? The tools can help, but don't let be like the ring was for Gollum. Buy my T-shirt. You should know that I will bring Avengers at some point, right? And you can see that I don't bring any movie that individual movie, but I pick up the Avengers movie, which is a movie about team, right? And okay, so this scene is like the first time they team up, right? And when they act together, kind of each one has a different role, right? So the archer cannot do the same thing as Thor, right? Thor cannot do the same thing as Iron Man. And for example, no one has the leadership of Captain America, right? So each one has its own role in the team. Each one do what he does best. And let's say in the most recent movies, we have some changes in the team, and it's not like I don't have a Hulk, I need to find out another Hulk. No, if I have anyone else in the team, it's not going to do what the other one do. It's going to do what he does best. So the team needs to figure out how he's going to work with these unique abilities of that new team member, right? And that brings us to one of the, I think, maybe one of the biggest pitfalls I see companies trying to do is to try to make people replaceable, right? So I think that the lesson here is don't try to make your team members replaceable. Try to get the best you can get from their skills, right? So it's a real story. I give consultancy in Brazil to a team that has a guy that was really good in creating very usable user interfaces. He really have the gift to make good user interfaces. So what happened? The tasks that needs that, the team used to let for him, right? So we used this team member the best we can. After a while, this team member have to leave, and another person get into the team, and that person do not have the same skills. Of course, knew how to deal with the front end of the application, but do not have the same skills, right? So what the teams did, the team tried to think another way to distribute the tasks. Now, instead of concentrating on one person, they always try, for example, to develop these in pairs, right? Because no one has the same skills as the other. So the team, it's not that that member was irreplaceable. We replaced him, but if we have a new team member, we need to figure out what is the best way to work with this new team member. On the other hand, this new team member was very good in data analytics skills. So the things about data, to do data analysis, he was the guy that lead this kind of activity. So it's like we lose one superpower, but we get another. So we need to figure out another configuration of our team to be able to adapt to this new team configuration. So don't try to make your team members replaceable, because if you do that, you will lose what they have best to offer. If you say, okay, this is your black box, this is what you get, this is what you need to get out, independent of who is there, right? If you do that, you will lose the best you can get from your team members. I have to put an animation. Maybe this one already have 10 years, more than 10 years, I think. The 2 is going to be released next year. And who saw this movie? Okay, who didn't saw it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, do a favor to yourself and watch it. I remember I watched this with my daughters in the cinema the same week I saw Jurassic World. And for me it was like, what happened to adult movies? Because the children's movies is much more deep than any adult movie, right? And okay, so this one might have a little bit of spoiler. So each of these are, let's say, beings that live inside the head of a girl, right? And she's 11, and this one jumping is joy, right? And this other one is sadness, right? So Joy thinks that she needs to be in control all the time, because being sad is something bad, right? And that Joy should take control all the time, right? But in the end, the girl was moving for another city, right? His parents, let's say, his father was like kind of in a startup or something. Things were not going well. She lost her friends, and she was not adapting well to the new school, and she had this idea, right, that being sad is wrong, being sad is bad, right? And like, you need to see the movie. There's a very interesting part that I think is very recent. It's a small part when they get a box with opinions and a box with facts, and someone dropped both and the things mixed, and they say, oh, that happens all the time. I think it is very this is very today, right? So the conclusion of the movie is that in the end, it's not that being sad is bad, but it's part of the life and you need to accept it, right? And what is the lesson we can take from this movie? Painful experience make you learn, right? I see many teams that think they need to be successful in everything all the time, right? If they make something wrong, they will try to looks, they make it right. If maybe they made a mistake in the architecture, or maybe they don't develop the best code, um, if they do that, will be a failure. Right? But the problem is, if they don't admit that they are sad, if they are not the best, if they are not successful, they will never learn and they will never evolve. Right? So this painful experience, maybe when you fail, when you don't deliver, when you design a bad solution, when maybe the client don't like what you show him, right? All these experience should not be hidden. They should be exposed as something normal. They should not be punished. They should use it as something to make you go forward, right? So I see in many things and in many companies sometimes this is not fault from the team, but from the company culture that kinds of punish every negative experience. So the teams will try to hide at all costs everything that goes wrong, right? Don't do that, right? It's from the failures that we evolve. Okay, I talk about Marvel, I need to have someone from DC too, right? I pick up the Dark Knight movie from Batman, but maybe some of you already suspect, I'm not going to talk about Batman. I'm going to talk about this guy here, right? And I was seeing like these the best villains of all time, and I saw like Joker was the number one, and the guy said, "Why Joker? It's a good villain." It's like, for example, there is the villain that tries to conquer the world, and you take this from the villain, you defeat the villain. Right? There is another that wants to be rich, get money, right? Get power. You take this from the villain, you beat it. What is the goal from Joker? Create the chaos. He just wants to see you picking up the things you believe with all your heart and throw away. He wants you to give up from the things you believe. He wants to see the chaos happen. And what we take this from our agile and the kind of, for example, what plan can you do to defeat someone that is so chaotic, that is so unpredictable, right? You need to learn how to deal with the chaos, how to deal with the unpredictable. And that's one of the first lessons we have in Agile. Accept the chaos. Accept that things will not be the way you plan. Accept that maybe that requirement that you study so much to identify, the next month it changes, right? That the business that your client described to you, next week the client will tell you, okay, now we give up of doing this way, we are going to do another way, right? So the chaos is there, the chaos is in the world, things out of our control happen in all kinds of software projects, right? And I see many people that try to fight this. It's like trying to understand the plan from Joker to try to get him, but he don't have a plan. How you are going to predict something that does not exist, right? So it's the same thing. And Agile, it's about that, is to learn the best way to deal with these changes instead of trying to predict everything, to know everything. How is my time? Okay. Um, Mission Impossible, right? This one can actually works for any of these spy movies, right? Well, okay, these movies always have like the main spy. What is the best friend of this spy? The hacker, right? He always have the hacker, right? And for instance, the first Mission Impossible, there was this very famous scene that they need to enter in a chamber that he cannot step, that there are 1,000 of security measures, that if the temperature rises 1 degree, already sounds the alarm and everything, but in the end, he goes there and put something that the hacker did. What if this thing does not work? Right? So everything that the heroes do, right, depends on the thing that the hack and always work. The movies always work, right? Maybe to give some emotion. Imagine like doing this kind of thing, no testing. It's like, let's run in production with your life on the line, right? It's kind of this, right? So in the end, for all of this to work, the thing that the hacker is doing, the thing that we did, needs to work, right? And that is what I think when today, when we talk, when Agile starts, was about TDD, was about refactoring, was like the developers' revolution on software engineering, because that was dominated by the project managers and everything that want us to do UML diagrams, wants to write a lot of documentation, and then the developers say, no, we have a best way to do that. Then we can do refactoring, we can do TDD, we can work on the code quality, and then the code is easy to change, and then you don't need to spend so much time in requirements, because if our code is easy to change, then you just change it, right? And now the power was shifted, like everyone that kind of tell that use it to tell this kind of get let's say now dominated the Agile. So if you go, for example, in Agile conference, is usually there is like this room in the end of the corridor where we're talking about TDD or something like that. But mainly it's Agile coach and then the process and everything, right? But they always have this, do you know, like this, when you see this advertisement that they need to put something, and but they say really fast, like, oh, this is blah, 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 and or appear something really small, and it's like that. Oh, this is Scrum, this is small iteration, only works if you do TDD and refactor. Only works if you care about code quality, right? Only works if you take care of your code. But this is usually is written in small letters. It's like the hacker guy in this kind of movie that nobody show how hard is his part, right? How much night Tom Cruise goes there in 5 minutes, he does what he needs to do. The hacker, I bet, keep, I don't know, spend 5 nights without sleeping developing that thing that needs to work. Otherwise, I don't know, the world explodes or something worse, right? The thing is, the lesson here is that all these things they speak about agile and this small iteration will only works if the technical part is working well. And we should never forget about that, right? The code should be good, right? We need to have automated testing. We need the best practices. How can we do small iterations if our code is not easy to change, right? It only works if our code is easy to change. So never forget the hacker, right? The guy that is there. Don't sleep in the night for the Tom Cruise to appear for 5 minutes and be the big hero, right? His part is not beautiful, but it's essential. Okay, we get to the 10th movie, Back to the Future. And I pick up Back to the Future 3, right? This is another movie, if you don't watch it, right? For example, for my daughters, I did like the educational. This weekend we are going to watch the 3 Back to the Future movies. That's like basic education. Okay, so they were in the past, right? And they were trying to get back to the present, right? And to do that, they need to make the machine, the time machine, to reach a given speed. So they say, okay, let's try some horses, right? And they tried the horses, did not work well, right? And then they say, okay, let's try to develop some kind of a fuel that might work to try to get the time machine to that speed. And I don't think it worked well too, right? So they say, okay, let's do some field research. And they went to talk to the guy that understands about train to know how fast the train can go. And they figure out in the right conditions after some time, after for example, how much time would take for the train to reach the speed they need, right? So they went to talk to a specialist, right? And then they pick up some diagrams, some maps to figure out where they could find a place, right, that they can get the amount of space they need to reach that. And they make models, right? They simulate, right, to how they should do, right, to be able to do the things as best as possible, right? So they even have a model of the car, the train, and everything, right? And then they, as you should imagine, they make it in the end, but some things did not, as I said, there was the chaos, there are things not working, they need to adapt, but it worked. Less time, as always, right? So what we can take from this, right? That not everything is a straightforward solution, right? As I said, we need to consider simplicity in the first place, right? Try to use the most simple solutions, but not everything is simple, right? For example, there are some architectural problems that are not good. So what we do experiment. We try to get feedback. We try to talk to specialists. We try to get information to make the best decision possible, right? To get the best feedback we have, right? So even if we try to, let's say, simplicity is good, it's a good starting point. But and it's like, for example, in Agile, there are something that we cannot wait, I don't know, for 2 months until you solve this to start developing the project, right? You need to do that until you develop, right? So you need to plan these activities. You need to, for example, plan for doing these experiments, plan what information you need to make the best decision possible. This while the project is running, while you are implementing, right? So simplicity first, but for some things we do need more information. We do need experiments and more systematic approaches for solving, right? In a sense that we don't have the answer for everything in the beginning of the project, right? And we need to search for this. And sometimes this search is not trivial, right? Okay, Star Trek, an extra one, right? And this one I put here representing not only this movie but all the Star Trek series. I'm a big fan, right? I mean, I'm very happy that we have Paramount Plus now in Italy. Then I can see the new shows from Star Trek. And okay, so if you already see Star Trek, it's science fiction, but it's mainly about people, right? You have a team, each one has its roles, you have diversity, and everyone is important, right? And if you take the series, they kind of face life and death situations that can destroy worlds, that can harm the whole galaxy. And they always consider people, they always listen to everyone, right? And even if the captain sometimes decide against what someone advises him, he always listen and consider everyone. And that leads us to our final lesson from today that I on purpose left to the end, which is people first, right? And it's interesting because, for example, I work in the university in the faculty or the informatics faculty, and I think I worked with the more people like even working with programming and architecture. When we work with software engineering, we can't forget that there's always someone behind the keyboard, right? There is always a team that needs to coordinate. And every decision should not only have people in mind, but should consider people first. And let's say I remember that when I first heard about XP, right? It was there. He picked 12 practices. For many things we have in software engineering, he picked 12. One of the 12 was the 40 hours week, right? And then in the next version became, I don't remember the exact thing, but it's kind of sustainable with it. In a sense that you cannot make people work until late every day and expect them to do a good work, right? You should not expect people for not resting and do a good work. In the end, you can use all the practices you want, but there is always someone behind the keyboard who does this work, right? And then you need to consider this person, needs to consider his opinion because he was there doing the things, right? Even if you don't agree, right? Even if you do go in a different direction, you should always listen to your team. You should always listen to the people there, right? And I finished this. If anyone has any comment, any story, that wants to share about something, any questions, it will be a pleasure to interact. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Can we have the slide?
Yes. I don't guarantee the copyright, but yes.
Well, I would like to compliment with you for the presentation, very brilliant presentation, I would say. And well, you touched. I fully agree with every single point you discussed. It's what I'm thinking in the last years, much more confused indeed. Well, and I think I will get inspiration from your presentation to talk to my colleagues, because I never found a so clear way to express all this.
Maybe invite them to a movie. With second intention, right? Have you seen Indiana Jones? If there's the new generation.
Better approach, I would say.
Thank you.
I'm curious if Agile is your pressure.
No, I kind of, I always think we need to analyze the trade-offs. I think this is always what we need. I think this mindset of getting feedback, understanding what is best. It's not, let's say, I would say maybe this way of thinking, but for instance, would you say, oh, this approach, or doing diagrams, or I don't know, using a more formal thing is necessarily bad? No, but you always need to analyze the trade-offs. In this sense, I'm very practical. In the end, that's the song. It's all about the money, money, money. That's also the people, but in the end, for you to use something, needs to work. If you are investing, for example, in software quality or in anything, in the end, needs to worth the investment you do there. So this worth for any technique you are going to use. There is not. I think that this Agile is more like a way to consider that having the feedback, doing this analysis, then use this technique or another. Good question. Anyone else? Maybe another movie?
Have you got another extra?
No. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for who is watching online. Maybe some people from Brazil. I sent the link at least. Maybe watching, and thank you for this opportunity.